Welcome. Today I'm going to be offering another reading. This one is called Masculine Provision. This writing was shared a few weeks, maybe a month ago, and it has since turned into a series. So this is part 1. If you are new to this, what I have begun doing with different pieces of writing that I have shared is created them to be more of a meditative experience. You could see this similar to listening to a book on Audible. However, I invite you to let this be an opportunity to receive the message beneath the message. So free yourself from letting the mind trying to figure out what it might mean, from trying to logic your way through it, and I invite you to receive. So if you are sitting in a chair, I invite you to plant your feet on the ground, let your spine be long, and you can also lay down. Both are great. You can go ahead and close your eyes. And we'll start with just taking a couple deep breaths at your own pace. Feeling the cadence of the inhale and the exhale. And let's get started. This is Masculine Provision, Part 1. Every time I start a prayer, I make notion of where life is holding me. Simply, notice the chair you are sitting in, your feet on the earth. Take a moment to recognize the way you are being held by life. Provision, to be held by life, to look ahead. Masculine provision starts with God. Masculine provision, even so in the form of money, starts with the way we choose to receive God in our unique and personal lives. This brings me to the ever-circulating conversation, men and money. However, I'm going to take a moment and spin the conversation in a direction that often isn't found simply because it isn't looked for. The provision that is so much more pro-visionary than his money, his presence. This is not to discount fiscal provision that shows up in the form of dollars, as I have also come to experience in great lengths just how powerful men are when they co-sign with their dollars, where they co-sign with their dollars. This is foremost a story about my father. Our fathers are our first figures of protection. They model and offer us a sense of safety, of grounding, of framing for what is to come. He is the unifying force in our home. He helps bind us together as one. The father is a crucial presence. Without his presence, it becomes easy to fall into an identity that forgets what it means to be loved. Without his covering, we are left with cracks and crevices to go out in the world and fill up on our own. To be fathered is to be rooted and anchored in our righteous identity as daughter, as son. Of the many forms of provision that exist, I was granted, in the midst of human imperfection, a father who was vitally present. I will never forget the face of my father in every sporting event, in every 10,000-mile trek across the country to move my life many times over. Most women think of masculine provision as a fat bank account ready to court his queen. While it can be, and very beautifully so, as a woman, I have found that until we come into congruency with where true masculine provision starts, that bank account is held stagnant in its ability to grow. I grew up with a father who knew how to do everything with his hands. Fixing cars, the TV, the computer, the shower, gardening, lawn work, you name it, he would figure the damn thing out. Now, if I was to solely focus on the provision of my Father coming in from fiscal amounts, it would most assuredly defeat the purpose and beauty of true provision's existence that started right in my home. A man offers life his provision in ways that are felt like art, when, and only when, as the women who surround him receive him with open hearts, graceful eyes, and a willingness to remember where he came from. Men are not powerful because of the way they can pay. Men are not worthy because of the money they gain. Men are deemed king when they create and tend to the territory that is their home. As women, before we can ask ourselves, ask life, ask God, for a man who will cover the expenses, a man who will hold us with his dollars, we are asked to remember where true provision and protection birthed and held us from. I say this understanding not every woman and man grew up with a present father, recognizing the imperfect form of man that didn't know how to show up for their daughter or son. This is where we turn to a greater presence of love, one that existed before the male figures failed in their attempt of offering an opposing force. Regardless of how you were raised, the Father of all never stops calling us home. When we are firmly rooted in what it means to be crowned, when we are congruent with remembering the regality that we were birthed to and from, we may open up the doors to such great abundance that our prior self would have to close their eyes and miss the greatness of its kingdom in front of us because it came from within us. The provision of my Father was a doorway. It was a doorway to the greatest prosperity of love. Women, to be taken care of financially is all held as a byproduct of your rightful place from prodigal to beloved one. Thank you for being here today, and I pray this served you in whatever way it's meant to. Take what lands, leave what doesn't.